It's Mindfulness on Monday with me, Phillipa and Sune. And so happy Monday, Sune.
Thank you, Philippa, and you. No, I totally agree. Like, just the weather being a little bit warmer, I'm like, oh, yeah, it makes me so happy. You just want to get up and do stuff.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? You just, a bit of joie de vivre, as the saying goes.
No, I mean, like, it's completely different when it's like this. And then I get glimpses of moving back to South Africa, and then I think, no, probably not. Like, no, but yeah, it's that feeling of like heat, isn't it?
It's funny, isn't it? Yes, I know what you mean about it transports you. This is the capacity of the brain to transport us with just a smell, an aroma, a sound, perhaps. You are so transported, aren't you? And springtime, springing.
Yeah. But I guess also, coming back to mindfulness, it's I think my time, years before knowing any of this, when it was weather like this, it would actually make me really sad and a bit depressed, because I'm thinking, I want it to be like this all the time because I miss South Africa and I want to be in the heat all the time and not appreciating it for what it actually is. It's a beautiful day. I don't have to make a story about the fact that I'm actually depressed because I don't have it all the time. So I feel like I've grown up a little bit and can appreciate it for what it is rather than wanting it to be different all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Being transported positively, rather than thinking of the negative connotations, perhaps, as well. Yeah. So putting a positive spin on it, never a bad thing. So today, our conversation, you and I were chatting, and we were saying about mindfulness is a wonderful thing. There's no shadow of a doubt about that, but that it isn't a panacea for all ills, and maybe not for everybody. I mean, I don't think anything is for everybody. I think, we all have our individuality and our preferences, but and so that was our conversation for today. Mindfulness, when is it appropriate? When does it work best? And other times when perhaps it might not be the thing that we should be opting for.
Yeah, I think, it really isn't for everyone. And I think that's why a lot of people prefer movement, and maybe, that's almost like a finding what works for you, right? Or what is a starting point for you? I think, it's easy to wax lyrical about something when it works for you. But yeah, it doesn't work for everyone. I think sometimes it can make things worse, especially when it comes to anxiety. And one of the courses I'm teaching now, one of the ladies was saying, we're about week 6 into an 8-week course. And she was saying, why is it that her anxiety is actually worse than what it was started off as? And, one of the things where people go to mindfulness or start doing is like, well, it'll help with anxiety and it'll help with all of those things. And yes, it could, but it does kind of accentuate stuff. So actually what my teacher was saying was so helpful. It's like the anxiety is already there, but maybe it's because you're paying attention to it that it does feel more accentuated, or it does feel more pronounced. And I was reading an article about this not long ago. What was that?
My son, I don't know what on earth he's up to. I did ask him to be on the quieter side of the house, but anyway.
Is he singing, or was he?
Well, he's been practicing on his electronic drum kit. He's decided now, since A-levels are so last year, that he'd rather be in a band, and so he's having a go. He said he was doing some recording. I don't know quite what that involves, but anyway.
Oh wow! So the whole family is in their room recording something.
Oh, yeah. Didn't think of that.
The whole world is turned into a broadcast studio.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it's like, isn't it, with
Yeah.
the technology stuff?
Yeah.
But no, it is interesting because I had a very similar experience actually, and this was before I'd immersed myself quite so much in mindfulness and the yoga piece of the puzzle that I've been teaching. And I had a physiotherapy client, and I said something about, because if you're dealing with prolonged health problems, mindfulness is one of the strategies that is suggested to help people to cope. And so I just brought it up with this particular individual and suggested that it might be something that they wanted to do some research and that there were apps available and, all this. So I was just pointing this person in the direction, really, of doing a bit of homework and exploring. And then the person returned to me and absolutely what you said, which was that by giving symptoms more attention, that had somehow accentuated the problem for this individual and made them feel that they noticed the symptoms more than they had done before. And so that definitely was counterproductive under those circumstances. So how is it that we can pay attention, be present, pay attention, and yet not somehow accentuate a problem?
I mean, I'm biased because I teach a structured 8-week course, but I just think, especially when people have trauma, history of trauma, mental health issues, extreme physical pain, it's really important to do this with a teacher or someone who has experience with it, rather than just downloading something and trying to do it on your own and trying it once and then getting stuck and not knowing what to do with it. Whereas if you're in a group setting, if you're doing it with a teacher who's properly trained, there's dialogue. The teacher is supervised. The whole environment is like a very safe container for this, so that you don't feel like you're on your own and you're doing it on your own and you don't know what's going to happen, or because there's also this preconceived idea that you're going to leave your body and you're going to go into a different realm, and you're quieting your mind, and then people go, well, my mind is not quiet, and you go, well, it never will be quiet. So yeah, I think it can make it worse if it's not guided properly, or if it's not in the right environment. And people with a history of trauma, to all of a sudden do a body scan with someone who's just completely never ever paid any attention to their body because of whatever may have happened, that's really dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I do, I'm cognizant of. And I suppose, if we're talking about the mental health continuum, really, where are we? Where are we on this continuum of, no healthy at one end and pathology at the other end, and then there's a whole continuum in between of a variety of conditions, if you like, and there's a time when tools like mindfulness are appropriate, and then there's a time for therapy and psychotherapy and even psychiatry. So I think this is the thing that we do want people to understand, that this is a tool and it's not therapy. Am I right?
No, definitely. And I think, and that's something that's made very, very clear from the beginning with the courses that we do, is that it's not therapy. If before we start the courses, we have an intake questionnaire, to really understand. Okay, people don't always give all the information, but if they have a current situation of they're currently in a depressive state, or depression comes and goes, or if they've recently come through the other side of a bout of depression, then it's just not the right thing for them. And actually, in one of the other courses I'm teaching, this is happening. It's it's one of the participants who just started not coming anymore, and he missed the second session, so we contacted him to find out what's going on. And he was really grasping onto mindfulness, hoping that this will be something that can help him. But he was so intense with it and throwing everything at it. He was doing that. He was listening to the apps. He was reading the books. He was, just giving so much to try and, I wouldn't say save, but really wanting this to help him. And just a history of loads of stuff going on. And it was just like, maybe it's time just to kind of surrender and just leave all of these things for now, and just, because then it almost becomes like another thing to do, and like another thing on the list, and I'm not fitting it in, and I'm not doing 20 minutes here, and then it's, I think then it becomes a bit like a diet, where it becomes, well, I have to do this, and then it starts stressing you out, which is doing the opposite of what it is actually meant to be. And I think it's easy to kind of, and we all do it. We all want to be happy. We want to feel good. We want to live pain-free and live with ease, and just float around life. And that is, what all of us want, right? So looking for stuff to get that, but that's not the reality of life also.
Yeah, well, that's right. Fluctuation is inevitable. And life is not a bowl of cherries or a chocolate box of chocolate. What was it? Sometimes
a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. But it's not a bowl of cherries. You're right.
Okay. Anyway, so that, and the thing, of course, is that I have travelled through a fair portion of life, and have been had experience of fluctuations. And so I do think that having tools is a helpful thing. But you're quite right that sometimes it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, that it's just another task, another thing to bear down on me.
And it can also become a bit of an obsession and a bit of a escape as well. Of, I'm going to meditate, or I can't cope, so I'm going to meditate. And it's like, at what point does that become avoidance as well? And become something that, when I can't cope, I'm going to meditate. And I know of someone who used to sit in meditation for hours a day, but in real life was just, you wonder what that person was actually doing, because something was not working. And I think it can become a little bit of a crutch as well. And so just,
I think all these things have the place, and and going about your life in a mindful way, like we were saying, appreciating the flowers popping up in the garden, being able to be in the now for some of the time, at least, if not all the time, to be in the now, and to just be cognizant of what the opportunities are as well. I think that's important, because when things change, I've certainly practiced meditation to great benefit when my insomnia is at its worst, or was when I was perimenopausal. That I used to put the food in the oven, set the timer, and then go and lie down and meditate. And I knew that I had 20 minutes, and the one I would do was 20 minutes long, more or less, give or take. And so it was a window of opportunity, and I would lie down and I would do it. And I found that meditating regularly was akin to taking a tablet, and would help me to get a better night's sleep. And I found that it worked better if I did it earlier in the day, if possible. But apart from that, at tea time, if I hadn't managed to fit it in prior to tea time, then there's, when the dinner's in the oven or you've got 20 minutes of boiling on the stove, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it was a great thing. And so that was a time that I would do that. And at the moment, I'm not using meditation as regularly, but that's okay too. It's
Yeah.
and so get out and get some fresh air. Be mindful as you move about your day. You can lie on a mat and do it, or So, what do you think about those being around and moving to incorporate these things into movement?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm no expert, and it's a lifelong journey, isn't it? But I think that the difference, or the way I understand it, is that that's the practice on the pillow, or when you're sitting in formal practice, that translates into everyday life. And some people just live life a bit more mindfully and are more aware than many others. And I guess, like what you're saying is, you're also aware of your body and about the movement, and maybe more in tune than most, and able to translate that into everyday life much easier. But yeah, I think so. That's why I think the formal meditation is so important, because
Yeah.
it does help to do that. But it is like, it's a life skill, right? It's something you want to be able to use. We're doing something at the moment called like sewing the parachute, right? You don't sew a parachute 5 minutes before you jump out of a plane. It's years and years, and I've never sewn a parachute, but it's something that takes time, and it's like self-care, that you do it every day a little bit, so that you don't crash and burn at the end. And the thing is with movement, and that's why I think a lot of people prefer the movement practices, is because it does give the mind something to focus on. It is the movement, whereas just sitting in open awareness, or just being aware to whatever, is very, very difficult. So I guess that's why people use a mantra, or focusing on something aligns the brain or the mind to focus on something, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way of doing it. Just whatever we do, if it makes us kinder, more patient, more compassionate, well, not more, it's not like a striving, but just maybe a nicer human, then I think it's a good thing.
Well, I agree entirely, and I think certainly in the Hatha Yoga tradition, the movement was as a sort of conduit to get to that place where we can then surrender to the stillness. And actually, that's definitely my experience of going straight into a meditation practice, cold, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
provide more challenges than
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And we did a session this morning of fabulous movements, really lifting the energy. And having lifted the energy, then it's almost a natural kind of cycle to then come to that place of quiet and rest. And it's kind of like you've earned it, but that's what your body feels like. That it feels like very appropriate to rest at that moment, and that does somehow contribute to the ability to then rest and be quiet and have less intrusion. So anyway, for what that's
and I mean, you know much more about this than I do, but the way I understand it is that's why yoga was kind of developed, right? Was to prepare for meditation, and I guess just while you were talking, I was also just kind of thinking about the just how with movement, the thing that, our minds are so busy, but it's almost like it's in the background, and the body is responding all the time to what's happening in the mind, but we're not always noticing any of that because we're just doing whatever we're doing. But with the movement, and if you're paying attention to the movement, then that also helps to focus the mind, or yeah, just bring that kind of stability. And it's almost like, yeah, I mean, I have no clue what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about my own experience as well of movement. And while you were talking about, I see the benefit of it, I think, and really, yeah, just that complete connection, and that inhabiting the body, feeling it, and how the two are, connected. We can't separate it, even if we try.
That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it is very much that connection that I so enjoy sharing with people. This directing the focus of the attention, if you like, to body parts or sensations, to breath, because oftentimes, particularly if you're holding a balance, think of balancing on one leg, and then oftentimes you will hold the breath without realizing. And actually, we do that anyway, don't we? If you're immersed in a work, you might have found yourself suddenly that you're like, and that's because you were holding your breath. So, yeah. So I do really think there is a lot to be gained by taking time to move and focus on the movements. And that's Pilates and yoga are both mindful disciplines where you make that connection with your body, and inhabiting the body and getting out of the brain for some of the time is a great thing. And then of course the relaxation at the end is so much more rested. And then again, we're sort of getting away from the thoughts, aren't we? We're still trying to be in that place of still.
I really struggle with that at the end of a yoga session. Like, I'm so. It's like it's like I don't know. There's a bit of like, okay, I've got 5 minutes. I really need to make the most of it. So this is what's going on in my mind, instead of just allowing the body to rest. And I think there's also a little bit of that kind of like, okay, I need to get going now. So I find it actually quite hard, that end of the class.
I used to, I must confess, and actually I think I wrote that in my post today, that I used to like not see the point of it at all, and now and now I say to people, I know you only come for the bit at the end.
Yeah.
But lots of people say, "Oh, I only come for the lying down bit at the end," which I think is absolutely fine. And actually, I had one lady who fell asleep in the middle, and that was fine too.
That's amazing. She should bottle that and sell it, because people would want to sleep like that after a yoga class. Wow, that's amazing.
Well, halfway through, like I said.
Wow.
But yeah. So anyway, but I do love that, bringing it together into movement, and then taking that time at the end, and then maybe through the day, if you feel the need to just get away momentarily, it might be just as simple as taking 6 deep breaths.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a little story with you, because I'm just aware of the time as well, but where I have found, and it's quite personal, but something where I have found why I do what I do with mindfulness is, I remember so clearly when I was getting married, it was quite stressful, and we were in Washington, D.C., because that's where my in-laws are, and my sister came over from South Africa, and she really wanted to have a Starbucks coffee. And because I don't even know if they have them in South Africa yet or now, but she really wanted to go in and order one, like in the movies, right? And I was so stressed out and so overwhelmed by just everything that was happening and being in a different country and that I was, yeah, I feel so bad about it now when I think about it. I was like, we can't stop. There's just too much going on. And you know how helpful it would have been then to know what I know now. But that kind of brings me to what happened on Saturday when I was busy preparing. I was doing a mindfulness retreat on Saturday all day. It was my first one teaching.
Oh, didn't tell me.
I was so stressed. Anyway, she wanted to show me something on YouTube, a song or whatever, and I did that again. I was like, oh no, I can't listen now. There's just too much going on. Look at the time. And then I thought, and then that image of my sister and the Starbucks coffee came back to me, and I was like, oh my God, like, what is 2 minutes of my life to just stop and show interest and apologize for being such a bitch and, you know, just kind of being nice about it and showing interest. And yeah, so that to me was a very clear personal example of why I do what I do when it comes to practicing mindfulness, is having that tool in that moment where it's like you're not being the person you want to be, you're not living according to your values, you're not being the kind, nice, you know, you can't always be that, but you know, that's kind of what my values are. But having mindfulness as that tool to just kind of create that little space so I can go, oh, I'm not being very nice right now. What can I do differently? Or how can I be with this situation that is, you know, just not going to make her hate me more than she may do anyway when she's a teenager? I don't know.
Well, well done for putting it into practice, because that's, you know, that's a test, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that's the parachute thing we talk about, right? Like, that was a parachute moment.
It was. Well, do you know what? I think that's a good tip to leave people with today, isn't it? When do you start sewing your parachutes? Ahead of time is what is what we suggest.
Yeah. And it's never too late unless you're flying tonight. But you know, like both of us are, you know, not in our 20s, and we're learning these things as we're. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I don't know about you, but you know, yeah, I'm learning it as I'm, and I'm actually I'm so grateful for that, because otherwise, like, let's make the most of our second half of our life.
Yeah, absolutely.
With all this wisdom oozing out of us.
I like that. Yeah, well, it's definitely.
I think that's a good tip, Phillipa, is when can you start sewing the parachute, and how, and what are the little things you can do every single day?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time again today.
Oh, thank you, Phillipa.
Lovely to chat. And
see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you again online soon. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye.